Hello everybody, it's Mark here. It's currently Thursday evening. It's been 31, 32 degrees C here in England today. Been incredibly hot, been a bit of a struggle at work. So I'm just relaxing here, and this is a video that I haven't really wanted to make for many years because it's about a part of my life that I've moved past and I'm trying to forget about. Because it's not a very nice thing to talk about. Brings back some very, very disturbing memories. I've actually made this video 6 times in the last 2 days, and I've deleted it because I haven't liked watching myself or hearing myself talking about this. But I've decided that because I'm changing my channel and I'm asking all of you who watch my videos to sort of watch and subscribe and like and send me comments and stuff. And I kind of feel like if you're asking people to invest their time in something that you're doing, those people kind of deserve honesty and truth from you. And also, I'm a great believer in personal responsibility. You should always take responsibility for the things that you say and do in life. So I'm trying to record this video again. I don't even know if I'm going to upload it. So if you are watching this on YouTube, obviously I've decided to upload it and let you all know this. So let me just get into it and see if I can make this video a cogent, cohesive thing. Because it's very difficult for me to talk about, as you'll no doubt find out, because I might lose some viewers and I might lose some subscribers. I don't know, but if I do, then I do. But yeah, this is a video that I've wanted to make, but at the same time don't want to make, if that makes any sense. So for those of you who have been watching me for some time, you will know that I have a history of mental illness struggles. I was making a lot of videos on my channel, I think it was probably 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago now. If you don't know the history of my mental illness, I've suffered with severe anxiety, and I've been diagnosed with a dissociative identity disorder. I'll put a link to the playlist to all of my mental health videos in the description box below. So if you want to watch this video and then find out more about my mental health history, then please go ahead and watch those videos. I'm not going to go into the whole thing here because it will take me too long. So anyway, I have had anxiety, and a number of years ago I was diagnosed with a dissociative identity disorder, and there's some debate about the level of it. It doesn't really affect me too much now because I had help, but basically I ended up having to spend time in the psychiatric hospital in a place called Prospect Park in my hometown of Reading. I had to go there. I had to be assessed. I had to be treated. If you're watching this and you've never been inside a mental health hospital, then I'm very happy for you, because those places are bloody awful, awful places to go. I saw things and heard things, excuse me. I saw things and heard things in that hospital that I wouldn't wish my worst enemy or somebody that I hated to have to see and hear. They're terrible places. Of course they're terrible places. They're places where people who are very ill go. They're horrible places. I wouldn't want to go back there for any reason. So anyway, I had to spend time in the Prospect Park Psychiatric Hospital. I had a crisis care team assigned to me because they felt that I was a danger to myself. Not a danger to anyone else, but a danger to myself when it was at its worst. I also was assigned later a home visitor, a man that came to my flat once a week for about 2 months to see how I was getting on and how the medication was working, and to see if anything was improving, which luckily it was. And basically I developed all kinds of really weird, bizarre things. A dissociative identity disorder, basically speaking, is where you develop other personalities and other characters. Again, the severity of my illness was they weren't 100% sure whether I had developed personalities or characters, but anyway, it's a very hard thing to explain. But basically, your brain tries to protect you from bad things that are happening or bad memories, and it does that by creating another personality, which takes you away from who you are and your real life situation, and makes you think you're someone else, somewhere else, doing something else. I also developed obsessive habits, really obsessive habits. Like, I was buying tons of stuff that I didn't want or need just for the sake of buying it. And I know lots of people buy things that they don't need, but this was obsessive. I had a record collection back then, and I was buying like 10 to 15 records every couple of days. Records that I didn't even want or listen to. I would just get them, open a box, put them on the shelf, and then I'd be like, I need more, and I'd buy more. So it was obsessive. I was out of control. I was doing lots and lots of crazy things because of this illness. As I said, luckily, I had a routine visit to my GP for a general medical checkup, and he's been my GP for a number of years, so he noticed there was some very strange things that I was saying, and he felt like I wasn't myself. So he did a very brief checklist with me, and then basically I was sitting in my GP's office thinking I was going for a routine check, and then the next thing I knew, he was on the phone to the Prospect Park psychiatric hospital saying, this man needs to come and see you as soon as possible. And they saw me the very next day, so that was a hell of a shock, because I didn't realise. One of the things about dissociation is that you don't really realise you've got it, because obviously your brain is dissociating you from reality. So that was a hell of a shock. Anyway, as a result of my illness and doing crazy things and being obsessive, I actually got into trouble and ended up in a magistrate's court, and I received a small fine because what I had started to do was I was buying and selling things on eBay, nutritional supplements. I was buying huge amounts of these nutritional supplements on eBay, and then I was selling them on. But basically what happened was I had copied a bunch of studies from the internet and put them on my eBay adverts. And these studies contained information about the nutritional stuff that wasn't actually, what's the word? How would you say this? Wasn't legally accepted. If you advertise something, you have to actually, and you make a claim about something, that has to be legally accepted as truth. So basically, if you advertise a nutritional supplement and you say, this nutritional supplement can help with making your hair stronger or something, if that hasn't been proven in studies, you can't by law put that on. So basically, in my kind of crazed, not very well state of obsessiveness and being out of control, I was buying tons of nutritional supplements, putting them on eBay, and then I was copying stuff off the internet and putting them on the adverts, and I got into trouble for that because the stuff that I was putting on the adverts was studies, it was genuine studies, but the studies hadn't been legally verified. I think that's the term. So I ended up in magistrate's court. For those of you who don't live in Britain, you may not know what a magistrate's court is. A magistrate's court is a small court that deals with very small cases where somebody's done something wrong, that usually end up with you being in court for 5 minutes and they give you a fine for something. We have a magistrate's court, and then we have a crown court. A crown court is where crime that's been committed or serious crime is heard, because in a crown court you have a judge, you have a jury. In magistrates court you basically have two magistrates who sit and basically decide, this person has done this wrong, we're going to fine them X amount. So for instance, magistrates courts, they deal with small fines. So if you get a parking ticket and you don't pay it, you end up at magistrates court and you get fined. If you have a speeding fine, you don't pay it, you end up at magistrates court. If you don't pay your television license, you can end up in magistrates court being fined. So that's basically, it's a non-serious court. It's not where criminals who have done really bad stuff go. They go to Crown Court. I ended up in a magistrates court. Now, this was what was happening to me at that time, this was the worst and darkest time of my entire life, because I was incredibly ill. I was being helped by psychologists and psychiatrists at the mental hospital. I was on medication. I had a crisis care team, as I said, and then I had to go to court, and that was hard. It was a horrible time, really awful, the worst time of my life. And to end up having to sort of go to court and be fined for something that I had no real control over was terrible. Now, luckily for me, my psychologist at the mental hospital, he sent a report to my representative who was representing me in magistrates court, and he produced the psychological report. And the magistrates, I was literally in the magistrates court for 5-6 minutes. Did you do this? Yes. Here's your fine. Okay. So he produced a psychological report from my doctors. The magistrates read it, and they were two female magistrates. They weren't sort of nasty. You know, you watch TV shows of people in court, and they're usually quite unpleasant to people. They were really kind and really lovely, generous ladies. They said, "Look, Mr. Gardner, you've come here today because you've done this thing. You've admitted that you've done it. We know why you've done it because we've read your psychological report." My psychiatrist and psychologists, doctors, had actually said in the report that we believe that his obsessive, sort of out of control personality with this dissociative identity disorder is the reason that Mr. Gardner did what he did. Because I was a self-employed painter and decorator at the time. I wasn't a vegan. I knew nothing then about nutrition. I had no interest whatsoever in selling nutritional supplements on eBay. It was completely out of character. So my psychologist and my doctors at the hospital basically said, you know, we need to investigate his illness further, but we think this is why he's done this. Luckily, the magistrates were very kind and said, we can see, I mean, her exact words were, we can see that you've got very serious mental health issues. We're going to fine you this because we kind of have to. They had to fine me because I had admitted that I'd done it. Yeah, they were really nice. Sorry, I'm struggling to talk properly, really, because as I'm talking to you, all the memories of being in that hospital and being with people who literally don't even know that they exist. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling. What was I saying? Oh yeah, the magistrate said, we know you've got serious mental health problems. We know that you're not a bad person because, you know, you're in your late 30s and you've never been in trouble. You've got an impeccable record. What you've done is out of character, so we're going to fine you. And then this lady said, she looked straight at me and smiled, and she said, I've read your psychological report and you're obviously very ill, and I hope that you go out and you get the help you need and you get better and you go forward and live a good life. And I don't want to see you in here again. At which point I said, don't worry, you won't be seeing me here again. So the magistrates were really lovely, and I got a very small fine. And as I said, I was in there 5-6 minutes. Now, there are a couple of things that happened when the people charging me with it that weren't very nice. There was this really weird thing where they alleged at the magistrate that I had earned £40,000. Well, they didn't say that I'd earned... Okay, here's the thing. This is the weird thing about legal speak. They can say something and make it sound like something else. So they basically said that the value of the goods on Mr. Gardner's eBay account add up to £40,000. The way they said it was definitely them trying to make out that I had earned £40,000 from doing this, which was absolutely insane. Basically, because I was ill, I wasn't doing anything on eBay properly. So it wasn't like I was buying something and then figuring out what to sell it for to make profit. So I was selling these nutritional supplements for almost the same amount of money, and in some cases less than what I was paying for them in the first place. So that shows you already that something wasn't right. Nobody who wants to make money buys something and sells it for less. You don't buy it if you want to be a car dealer. You don't buy a car for 10,000 and then sell it to somebody for 7,000 and make no money. So I wasn't making any money on this. If you do go back to my mental health videos that I was making at the time this was happening, you'll see that I was living in a tiny, not very nice, not very clean, very small 1-bedroom flat, because it was the cheapest flat that I could find. I'd left my hometown and moved somewhere new, because I wanted to start something else in life. And yeah, I was living in this tiny, didn't smell very nice. The carpets were all kind of rotten, and it wasn't a very nice place. And actually, I have some videos on my channel of me showing you round that flat after I decorated it. I made it 100% better. But anyway, I was living in a tiny 1-bedroom flat that was costing me very little money because I had no money. I didn't have a job at this point. I'd spent about a year out of work. I couldn't work as a painter and decorator because the illness was just, it was too much for me to work. So I spent some time out of work. So I had no money. And they were suggesting, as I said, they said that the value of the goods on my eBay account added up to 40,000, but they were intimating that I had earned 40,000. It's pretty difficult to earn £40,000 over the course of a couple of months when you're selling stuff for less than you paid for it, right? Anyway, my representative in court, because you have to have a solicitor because they have to deal with legal papers, he immediately stood up and said, I've studied the papers. I cannot find where they're getting this £40,000 from. There's no income. You know, Mr. Gardner's bank accounts and eBay accounts don't show income anywhere near 40,000. In fact, my solicitor actually pointed out to the magistrates, in fact, he's been selling stuff for less than he's been paying. So my solicitor refuted the £40,000 sum, and I think the magistrate basically just kind of dismissed it because the guy who was on the prosecution didn't then even bother to defend it, which was odd. My solicitor said, we can't find where you're getting this 40,000 from. The guy who said, you know, my value was £40,000, he then didn't defend it. So I felt really angry at that because I went back a couple of years ago and studied my eBay accounts at the time, And I think what he did was he added up everything that I've listed and everything that I've sold on eBay since I opened my eBay account, which must be, God, more than 10 years ago. And I think he just added up the value of everything that I'd ever put on eBay and just came up with a figure, because what he said in court was the value of items on Mr. Garden's eBay account. Now, I have sold huge amounts of stuff on eBay. My record collection I sold on eBay, which was a large record collection. I moved from a larger house to a one-bedroom flat, and I sold most of what I owned. If you know anything about me, you'll know that I was a minimalist, and I sold and got rid of almost everything I owned, including most of my books, furniture, possessions. I had nothing. I started again. Now, I think that £40,000 was basically him adding up everything that I've ever listed and sold on eBay. And he tried to present it as this is how much he made, which was nonsense. That made me really angry. The fact that my solicitor basically shot that down and he didn't then defend it says everything. Anyway, yeah, the magistrates were very friendly. They wished me well. They gave me a small fine. Even though it was a small fine, as I said, I was out of work and didn't have any money, so I had to end up pay it in monthly instalments over a few months just to clear it. And to be honest, the experience in the magistrates' court, despite the fact that I was unwell, on medication, struggling to get out of bed in the morning, the experience of the magistrates' court was actually not too bad. I was surrounded by people who were being fined for parking in a disabled parking space and not paying their TV licence and not paying a parking fine. I wasn't surrounded by people on trial for murder or anything like that, so the court was fine. As I said, the magistrates were very friendly. My solicitor was excellent. He understood that I was ill, and so he kind of took me through everything. The person that did that brought the case, he was, what would I say? I have to be careful because I don't know how these people go about their job, because it's their job. But I would say he was duplicitous and he was malevolent. And whether that's him just doing his job, possibly. So I don't bear him a grudge or anything if he's doing his job, but the thing about the £40,000 really pissed me off, because he was trying to suggest that I had put these things on to try and make all this money, which was not true. And if you've been watching my channel for a long time and you've seen my videos, mental health videos, and my videos of my flat, you'll probably get a good idea that I wasn't making £40,000 in the space of a couple of months. Because my surroundings are not the surroundings of a man that can earn 40 grand over a couple of months, right? If you could earn 40 grand every 2 months from selling stuff like that on eBay, you wouldn't be living in a tiny, dirty, smelly, falling apart one-bedroom flat that has no shower and no proper heating that worked properly, old rusty electric heaters. So anyway, to move on, it wasn't a pleasant experience, but it was okay. So anyway, I decided, okay, that was okay. I'll put it behind me. I'll get back to the hospital. Okay, so one thing I should just add. Some of you who are watching, you might be wondering why I didn't plead not guilty. Now, my solicitor told me that I had the right to plead not guilty and to plead, what was the word? Diminished responsibility. So I could have said I'm not guilty because of diminished responsibility, because I'm ill. Then he would have presented my psychological report, and then there was a very high chance that the magistrate would have understood that. However, my solicitor told me that if you go to court and you plead not guilty through diminished responsibility, you have to then be psychologically assessed by the courts or the department that do that. That would have meant me having to go back to the psychiatric hospital. Maybe not Prospect Park, it might have been somewhere else. Now, my appearance in magistrates court happened exactly 1 year after I began going to the hospital and getting treatment. So after a year of treatment, I was much better. So the idea of pleading not guilty through diminished responsibility and having to be put back into a mental institution for a short period of time to be assessed, that was like, no way, I'm not doing that. For two reasons. One, it had happened, the court case was a year after my treatment begun, so I wasn't ill enough to be in a place like that. And if you put somebody who's not ill enough to be in a psychiatric hospital, that's going to cause a lot of damage because they're terrible places. Secondly, my experiences in that hospital were so horrible. Being in a hospital and being surrounded by all those people was so horrible. And I still actually have nightmares about it sometimes, and sometimes during the day I'll get a flashback and it'll just freak me out. When you've looked at somebody in a mental hospital and you look into their eyes and you're looking into their eyes, but you can't see anything in their eyes because it's almost like they're completely blank. That's really terrifying. I've never been more scared in my life than when I was in that hospital surrounded by those people. Everybody who went for a walk on the ward or whatever had to have a big security guard with them because a lot of people would lash out or punch the walls and horrible. So the idea of pleading not guilty through diminished responsibility and having to go back to an institution like that was never going to happen for me. There's no way I was going to go back to that. So I decided I want to end this today. I'll say I did it. I'll take the responsibility. I believe in responsibility. You should always take responsibility for your thought, for your actions and your words. People who don't take any responsibility, I don't get on too well with those people. Take responsibility. Say that I did it, because I did do it. I made mistakes. I didn't do it in a malevolent way. I didn't do it to make money. I made stupid mistakes because I was ill and I was doing obsessive, out of control, crazy things that weren't my personality because I had this illness. There was no way I was going back to that hospital, so I said, I'll plead guilty. I'll take the fine. I'd rather plead guilty and take the fine and end this today than end up having to be assessed again in another institution and go back there. So I left the court. I was fine. I didn't feel particularly guilty because I knew what I had done wasn't me that did it. Physically it was me, but mentally it wasn't. Anyway, this is the thing now that caused me the most pain. 3 weeks after my court case, the local media put a little half-page report out about what had happened, and I read it and I was absolutely stunned. I was like, what? They're writing about me. I mean, it was a tiny, insignificant case about somebody who had mislabeled some adverts on eBay and got a small fine and wasn't well. But I was really shocked, and it really caused me a great deal of pain because that article, they tried their best to make me sound like a really horrible piece of shit. The basic, without actually saying it, again, journalists are very clever. They can write things, say things without saying them. Without actually saying it, they were intimating that I was ripping people off, telling people that nutritional supplements can cure all these illnesses and do all these wonderful things, and at the same time making £40,000 out of it. Now, if I had read that article and it wasn't about me, I would immediately think, Jesus, that guy sounds like a scumbag. And that really hurt. That seriously hurt me. And that kind of broke my heart for a little bit, and it threw my treatment back, actually. That article actually brought my illness more to the fore, because it made me more anxious and more depressed, and that is when your dissociative identity disorder gets stronger. So that was horrible. They were deliberately intimating that I was this horrible human being that was making all this money out of selling these things. Now, here's the thing that they did. They exaggerated the reason that I was in court. They made it sound like I was this terrible person, earning lots of money, doing this terrible thing. But what they also did was they completely ignored what the magistrate and my solicitor had said and my psychological report. So what they did was they had several paragraphs of trying to make out that I was a horrible human being, making money out of not selling stuff properly on eBay. And then I think it was near the end, there was one little sentence that said, the court heard that Mr. Gardner has some mental health difficulties. So they deliberately exaggerated why I was in court, and then they deliberately downplayed the mental health aspect. And I'm not looking for anybody's sympathy, by the way. I'm not making this for sympathy. I'm making this because I don't want to make it. And I think that I'm of the opinion that when you don't want to do something, that's actually when you should do it, because not doing things you don't want to do is actually good for you. And even though I hate talking about this to you, and I hate the fact that some of you are probably going to be sitting there judging me negatively for the trouble that I got into, I'm doing this because I believe in honesty, I believe in responsibility, and I think in the long run it'll probably do me good to talk about this to a camera, because there's a certain catharsis involved in talking to a camera, which is essentially you guys, right? I hope you're not judging me negatively. I know some of you will. I know I'm going to get some negative comments, and I know people are going to be attacking me for it, but that's fine. I'm putting myself out there. I know I'm expecting. I know what I'm expecting. Okay. But yeah, the newspaper article was horrible, and it broke my heart. I'm not the person that they made me out to be. And they deliberately, the little sentence, he has some mental health difficulties. The person who was in that court, the journalist, just completely, obviously had in mind that he wanted me to be an unpleasant person. And he didn't want the readers to know that I was seriously ill. And when I say, some of you might be doubting how seriously ill I was, I don't know if you know the situation in Britain, but mental health is so badly underfunded in this country that people all over the country who are seriously mental ill are not getting the treatment that they need. Now, local authorities do not put somebody in a mental hospital with 5 or 6 members of staff looking after them, with a crisis care team looking after them, and have somebody come and visit you in your home once a week, unless you're seriously ill, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to save money. They're trying not to put you in those places because it costs a fortune. I dread to think how much money I cost everybody. So if you're thinking that I wasn't that ill, just think about that. If you're in Britain, you will know mental health services are so badly funded and overstretched. You will know that putting me in a hospital with all those members of staff and all of those resources was a big deal. But the newspaper dismissed that. They ignored it and made me to look like a complete shit, which I'm not. My experiences in the court were okay. The newspaper 3 weeks later was heartbreaking. It actually put my treatment back, it made me more ill. But I would say the worst thing about that point of my life was the illness. The court case was fine. I paid the fine. I've put it behind me. I've moved on. I'm much better now. I still have a dissociation, but I know how to deal with it, and I know what the signs are, so it's not too much of a problem. Sometimes It's a minor problem, but I'm lucky that I've got people around me who know about it, so they actually can point out that I'm sort of drifting off a bit, you know. So there you go, guys. I've changed everything on my YouTube channel. I had hoped, well, I don't even know if you're going to be watching this. I don't know if I'm actually going to upload it. But if I do, I had hoped that I would be making happier content for you to be uploaded this weekend. But I decided, because I'm changing everything, I want to be open and honest and responsible to you guys. And I want you to know the truth about stuff. It was a horrible, horrible time in my life. The worst time in my whole life. I don't ever want to go back there. But, as I said, the person that the newspaper made me out to be does not exist. That person has never existed. I am not the person who was trying to make money selling stuff on eBay and claiming that it was doing things that it wasn't. That's not me. I would hope, if you've been watching my videos for any period of time, I would hope that you've got a sense of who I am, and I would hope that many of you would know that that's not me. And as I said, there'll be a playlist link to my mental health videos in the description box below if you want to watch those and get a better idea of who I am and what goes on. That's great. If you've decided that because I got into trouble in court, I'm not the sort of person that you want to watch, okay, I understand that. As I said, I know people are going to judge me. When you make YouTube videos, you are essentially being judged all the time, negatively or positively, so that's fine. But I wanted to make this video because the person that I am is a decent person, or at least I think I am. It's not always easy being decent, but as long as you believe in decency and honesty and you practice it, you'll get there. For a very brief period of my life, a few months, I was severely ill. I was out of control. I wasn't my own personality. I had another personality developing. Luckily, that was spotted early enough to get good treatment. And during that time, I did something that was wrong. I went to a minor magistrate's court. I got a fine. I took the responsibility of it. And then this newspaper kind of did a bit of a number on me. But that's okay. That's what newspapers do. It's the reason why very few people read newspapers anymore. Because they're not good people. Thank you for investing your time. I hope I'll see you again in the next video. The content will be much better than this, I promise you. I do feel quite good that I've actually made this video this time, so hopefully I'm going to upload it. And I can't do anything about how you're going to judge me or what you're going to think of me, but I would hope that if you've watched my previous content, you already know a little bit about the person that I am. And I hope you stay with me. I will lose some subscribers, I'm pretty sure. I hope you stay with me because, sometimes we make mistakes, sometimes we do things wrong, sometimes we can help them, sometimes we can't. We're all human and we all have to learn. And I've learned more about myself from being ill and getting into trouble than I've ever learned anything in my entire life. And I'm a better person for it. And at the end of the day, whatever anybody on social media thinks of me, I know, and all the people that know me personally know, that I'm a good person. I have a clean heart and I have a clear conscience. And at the end of the day, as long as I know that and the people that I love know that, that's really all that counts. Thank you for watching. Sorry it's not very upbeat content and it's very long, but this was important to me. So if you have watched, thank you very much. And if you feel any kind of mental health struggles, please get it seen to immediately, because I didn't get my problems seen to immediately and it got worse and it ended up with me in a hospital and in a magistrate's court. So get your mental illness sorted as soon as you can. Don't put it off. Go and see your doctor, talk to your family, And I wish you all the best, and stay safe, stay healthy.